Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Today we have Senator Jim Banks with us. He was elected in 2024 to represent the state of Indiana. Oh, this is so funny. In my notes, Sarah, who works with me, is from Indiana, and she wrote "Go Hoosiers," which I'm not going to say, but I think it's funny that she put it in there to try to make me say it. Senator, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be with you, Tudor. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Go Hoosiers.
All right. You know, I am a Michigan girl. So I will just say that I have been wanting to talk to you for a while. We've been trying to get you on the podcast. I'm really excited about what you've been able to take to Washington from Indiana. And it is important to me because we are all in the Midwest here together. The reason I don't want to say "Go Hoosiers" is because you've taken a lot of our business. And I do remember when you guys put up the billboards saying thank you to Gretchen Whitmer.
For a lot of good reasons. And, you know, it's sad because I love Michigan. I vacation in Michigan with my family every summer. I grew up going to Michigan. I live just 45 minutes from the state line, and Michigan has so much to offer. But because of your current leadership in your state, you guys have slipped further and further behind in the metrics that matter, and that's creating good-paying, working-class jobs for the next generation. And Indiana's benefited from that. So, but I hope you guys turn the page and elect leadership in your state that will copy some of the things that we've done in Indiana and change that, because a strong Michigan is good for the Midwest and good for Indiana too. And I think Tudor, you're going to be a big part of that for a long time to come.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And what you're saying, I have been saying this, and actually we were just last night, we were at an event with a bunch of people from the middle of the state, and we were talking about that exact message, because I hear so many politicians going out and talking about, we're going to bring education back, and we're going to get you lower taxes, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. But there's no how. And what you just said is so important. Bring high paying jobs, good paying jobs back to the state. That is what Michigan has not had in so long. But Gretchen Whitmer has paid $1 billion of our money, taken our money and paid it to corporations that promised those good paying jobs to the state of Michigan. And we didn't even get 1/5 of what they promised for that money. So you've been kind of talking about this lately, of it's important that we don't turn our backs on who we are now, what this new Republican Party is. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this over the years. I mean, you think about Michigan's economy; it's a lot like Indiana's economy. And I come from the Fort Wayne area. We feed a lot off of Detroit, the auto industry. Actually, Indiana has the most manufacturing jobs per capita of any state in the country, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, it's the auto industry, it's the steel industry. Not far from where I live, we have the orthopedic capital of the world, Zimmer Biomet and DePuy, making medical devices. We have a rich manufacturing, blue collar, working class tradition in Indiana, and this is why Indiana is such a pro-Trump state. I mean, I believe this through and through. Donald Trump represents my state as well as he represents any state in the country, because he represents these blue collar, working class voters that have felt for too long like politicians from all parties have abandoned them. But Donald Trump sees them, he hears them, he wants to build a better life for them. You know, Tudor, for me, it's personal because I grew up in a trailer park. My dad was a union factory worker. He made axles at a factory in Fort Wayne called Dana. And my mom was
they were one of my customers. That's crazy. We used to make the axle housing.
There you go. It's a great example of what I'm talking about. My dad was a part of the Steel Workers Union. He had a really good paying job for over 30 years. He got a pension out of it. He put food on the table. We worked our way up to the middle class because of my dad's his strong work ethic and a really good opportunity. But when you look at factory jobs today compared to 25, 30 years ago, my dad only retired maybe 10 years ago from the factory, but you go back in time a little bit to maybe to the 80s, and these factory jobs today aren't keeping up with, you don't make a whole lot more today in a lot of these factories than what you did back then. And that's because we've let that manufacturing base, those blue collar jobs, fall further and further behind until Donald Trump came along. and the trade policies that he's pushed for, the immigration policies that he pushes for, these tariffs. I mean, what President Trump is doing with reciprocal tariffs, this is just the beginning of reorienting the global economy to bring these jobs back, not to allow these jobs to go overseas any longer, to save that manufacturing base. And to me, that is in essence the new Republican Party. When we focus on those voters, when we focus on voters like my dad, who by the way, when Donald Trump came down the escalator, my dad was for him from day one. I told my dad, "You're crazy. He can't win." I didn't see what my dad saw, but my dad saw it instantly. I mean, this was the guy who was talking about what he cared about, being tough on China, issues like that my dad cared about. And Donald Trump has transformed the Republican Party, this new Republican Party that you're a part of, that I'm a part of, that we're talking about. We have to keep our part. One day when Donald Trump leaves office, 3.5 years from now, and hopefully JD Vance succeeds him, he becomes the president, and we keep a Republican in the White House. But when Donald Trump is gone, we have to make sure that the Republican Party stays firmly planted with that America First ideology, that the principles of Donald Trump, and not go backwards to the Liz Cheney Republican Party, the corporate Republican Party that loves Wall Street more than they love Main Street and small towns and working class voters, or we'll lose elections forever if we do that. So
and then there's no distinction between us and the Democrats. And that's what we were talking about just last night. I said, you hear Democrats constantly saying, we've got to make people pay their fair share. Don't give the money to the billionaires. But you look in the state of Michigan, and there's almost been kind of this uniparty that has been funding the billionaires over the small business owners. And the small business owners are really the job creators that are making the jobs that are the good paying jobs. There's one guy I know that had a small business in Grand Rapids, and he probably had about 75 employees. He ended up selling his company for hundreds of millions of dollars. And when he sold the company, he gave every single employee $1 million. Those are the kinds of people we want to grow. We want them to want to be in our state. Instead, we have Democrats that are giving tax relief, like the no property taxes, to billionaire investors who are coming in from out of state sometimes, buying up all of our property. They don't pay property taxes. That pays our schools, that pays our police, that pays for everything local. And somehow it's the Democrats giving the billionaires the break, and we're getting blamed for it. But that's the party we don't want to be a part of. That's where I think we have to step away, and we have to invest in the small businesses and the people who are creating the jobs that are creating wealth. Because as you create wealth for people, everything else will rise. You will have more energy, you will have better schools, you will have more people building homes. That will all rise.
That's so true. If you go back to the election in 2012, when Mitt Romney ran against Barack Obama, Wall Street supported Mitt Romney by about a margin of 3-1 in campaign donations over Barack Obama. And that is the old Republican Party. If you fast forward to today, go back to the election of 2020, for example, Biden versus Trump. It was the exact opposite. Wall Street supported Joe Biden by a margin of 4-1 in campaign donations over Donald Trump, because Wall Street hates Donald Trump. They know that Donald Trump isn't going to let Wall Street sell our jobs out to China any longer. And this whole tariff trade policy that President Trump is pushing for right now proves it. That's why they don't like him, because President Trump puts the working men and women of this country first, those jobs for working class voters, blue collar Americans like my family. Donald Trump's a lot more focused on that than he is Wall Street. And that's what's different about today and the past. And Tudor, like you're saying, we got to keep the Republican Party centered on that. And it becomes very important right now, because right now, as we speak on Capitol Hill, we're going through this reconciliation bill, the one big beautiful bill to extend the Trump tax cuts. And I think, frankly, I got elected in 2016 to the House when President Trump was elected the first time. And that first big thing that we did was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And there was a big difference back then. We had Paul Ryan, we had McConnell leading the Senate. We had Republican majorities, but they weren't Republicans that were aligned with Donald Trump and his agenda. And one of the big mistakes the Republicans made back then was they overemphasized the corporate tax cuts, and they made those permanent, but they sunset the tax cuts on individuals, working class families, small businesses. And that's why now we're back here again today working on that. We can't make that mistake again. We got to make those tax cuts permanent. We have to focus. All of the other tax credits and business tax credits, research and development, all that stuff is important for the economy. But what should be our top priority are the working men and women of this country, and making sure that they get tax relief and that we extend it permanently. And that's what Republicans on Capitol Hill are wrestling with at the moment. We have to get that right. We have to let these voters know that you gave us you gave us back President Trump. You gave us majorities. The Republican Party today represents you more and better than we've ever represented you before. And we want you to remain Republicans, not go back to becoming Democrats because we didn't get it right.
Stay tuned for more of my conversation with Senator Jim Banks. But first, let me tell you about my partners at Ease Health. Today is a new day, and now you can replace your overpriced, lousy Obamacare with Ease for Everyone, the only group plan that any adult in the United States is now eligible to join. With Ease, you get a monthly cost as low as $262. Plus, you get free unlimited prescriptions. 93% of all drugs covered are available at no extra cost, including insulin, with huge savings on brand names. You'll also get free unlimited primary care visits, unlimited urgent care visits with a $30 copay, and a generous cash back reimbursement for emergency room visits, ambulance transportation, and doctor visits. You can have affordable healthcare for as low as $262 a month today. Just visit easeforeveryone.com/tutor and join today. Again, that's easeforeveryone.com/tutor. Now stay tuned. We've got more after this. Well, and I think people like yourself and others who have become more involved in Republican politics, but also have that background in manufacturing, have an understanding of the national security implications of this. And Donald Trump also has a grasp on the national security implications of not having manufacturing. He's been going out and talking quite a bit about the 90,000 factories that went out of business. You said your dad worked at a Dana shop. Dana actually closed a few factories in Michigan over the past few years. In the past 2 decades, we've had Dana shops close. In fact, the axle housing that we were making used to ship directly to Wisconsin. And then when we took it over, we actually took it from Michigan. This is how bizarre the state of global manufacturing is. It went from Michigan to Lyon, France, back to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, for a military vehicle. We were making military axle housings for Dana, and this is where it would go all across the world to come back to make sure that we had the vehicles to go over to Afghanistan. Now think about how bizarre that is. And if you're Donald Trump, I mean, even if you think about it from the automotive standpoint, like the automotive Six Sigma, it's like, the least amount of touches, the least amount of travel for a part. Here you have a part that actually goes from the United States to France and back to a different state in the United States. It makes no sense. And that's why you see Donald Trump saying, bring it back home. And when people go, oh my gosh, it's going to cost so much more money. Wait a minute. Think of the logistics of that. If you've been in the industry, you know you're paying for an entire container to go overseas and then come back and then travel back across the United States. The cost can be cut. It can be done in the United States, and jobs like your dad's can be saved, and also their wages can be increased.
That's exactly right. I mean, you save these jobs and the country is stronger for it. And it makes good business sense too. And a lot of it, as you know, Tudor, from your background, a lot of this is tax policy. You don't reward companies for sending these good paying blue collar jobs to China and Mexico. In fact, when I was a kid, NAFTA was a 4-letter word because my dad always got this. He saw it firsthand. I mean, that Dana factory in Fort Wayne when I was a kid was booming, 3 shifts every day, like overflow parking lots. I mean, it was, and then over the years, it's declined. You drive by factories like that today, they're not doing as well. So when President Trump, I was in the Oval Office when, I think maybe you were too, when President Trump signed the Liberation Day. You were at the White House around that time.
Yes, yeah,
He signed the reciprocal tariffs, and immediately we started hearing good news. GM in Fort Wayne made an announcement immediately that they were adding hundreds of jobs, and they were adding more overtime for their workers. Eli Lilly, which is a huge part of Indiana, a pharmaceutical company, they announced they were bringing $29 billion of pharmaceutical manufacturing out of China and moving it to the United States. Roche Diagnostics announced earlier this week $50 billion of investment that they're bringing back to the United States, including a big announcement in Indiana. We had a Made in America bicycle company in Columbus, Indiana, make $1 million announcement to make bicycles in Indiana. Honda announced they're going to make the next generation Honda Civic in Indiana, not in Mexico, not in Japan, but in my home state because of the tariffs, because these policies actually matter to incentivizing these companies to do what they need to do in the United States. It's good for our country, it's good for our workers, and it's a sign that this new Republican Party gets it. We represent these people that have become a big part of our voting coalition. We got to keep it that way.
Yeah, we are these people. This is us. That's what I keep saying to people. I'm like, this is us. This is who we are. The people who come in and they tell you, I've made billions of dollars over my lifetime and let me lead the state. Do they really know who you are? You have to find out if the person understands who you are. And I think elections are different than they were years ago. We kind of just trusted who was in our party, but you make such a great point. The party is different now. You have to listen to what the people are saying. Don't let us go back to the past. Make sure we keep progressing into the future. Last night when I was at this event, one of the gentlemen came up to me afterward and he said, I was sitting next to a lifelong Democrat. He said he just came over to the Republican Party. He said, I think he's really a Republican, but he's trying to figure out exactly, so many people are politically homeless right now, exactly where he fits. He said he listened to what you were saying and I heard him going, oh, yeah, uh-huh. He said at the end, he was clapping. He said it was genuine. He really felt like you understood what he needed. And he's like, here's a guy who was a lifelong Democrat. But I was looking at the income in Michigan, because you talk about Indiana, and that is, I think it's great. I'm jealous of it. Why is it happening there and not here? And I look at the policies in Michigan, and this is why elections matter, especially on the local level. We have so much red tape to get a business here. They don't even look at Michigan. Energy's too high. The barrier to entry is too long. You can't break ground. You can't build a building. Licenses are too hard to get, and then they're expensive. The Democrat regulation, the regulatory system under their rule is so abusive that no one will come to the state. And so when I look at the income level, I was looking at the median income in all of our different counties. In the red counties, it has raised with inflation, but nobody's life has improved. It's just stayed the same. In the blue counties, no raise. They have stayed at the same level they were at from the recession, from 2008 to today. Can you imagine? All of these years have passed. These are communities that are broken, and people complain, oh, it's because of education. How can you focus on your child's education when you are constantly in fight or flight?
And in Indiana, that's what under Governor Daniels and Governor Pence, we focused on creating that sort of environment in our state to attract these jobs, laying the groundwork for a moment like this, when manufacturing jobs come back. They're going to come to Indiana because we have a strong tax base. We have the education reform efforts at our state house have made our schools better. Across the board, we've created that type of environment. So those state policies, Tudor, really matter. But what President Trump is doing with the tariffs and what he's doing with this America First agenda is going to make our country at large, I think, stronger than it's ever been in our lifetime. And the big reason why is he understands that you can use trade policy to influence other countries around the world from a statecraft perspective, to put America and our interests and our shared interests with other countries ahead of China's interest. And what he's doing with tariffs is reorienting the global economy to diminish China, which is our biggest adversary, militarily, economically, rock China back so that America can seize the moment and be that leader that we used to be in the world. But the Democrats over Obama and Biden especially, they were so pro-China and sold us out to China. And the Democrat Party has become the pro-China party. I mean, because they've married up with Wall Street and Wall Street interests, they've sold us out to China so much that President Trump is taking this moment to try to diminish that and get America back on its feet and bring these jobs back to our country so that we can be strong again. And that's what this agenda is all about. He's just getting started. He has 3.5 years left to go. He's not going to miss a beat. Every single day Donald Trump gets up and he reminds us we can't waste a single day. We got to seize every single day that we have to bring these jobs back and make this country what we know that it can be again. I'm proud to be a part of that.
But tough on China is a rebrand for us, too. If we're being honest, Republicans were big on China. It was globalization, and China was the next best thing. It was going to be low prices, and this is going to build up our economy and their economy. And I think John McLaughlin said, Trump's pollster, he came out and he said, right now, these are Trump voters, but the GOP is just renting them. And I think that's because their memories are deep on this stuff. You know, people know that this was what the Republican Party used to be preaching, and Donald Trump has changed that. However, you see the mainstream media attacking him regularly on these tariffs from China. They're saying that he doesn't know what he's doing. No, he's 4 months in. He's already cutting trade deals. He's got this 90-day trade deal with China. They're panicking because they've just never seen this in politics before. Someone who understands negotiating and understands how it impacts the country. So how do we convince voters we're not going back? We're going to be tough on China. And Donald Trump knows what he's doing with the tariffs.
Yeah, I think it goes back to those fundraising numbers I talked about, how Wall Street overwhelmingly supports Democrat candidates over Republican candidates. And I think that's healthy. That's good for us. Take the Band-Aid off and let Wall Street know that we don't represent you. We represent real people. And when we figure that out and don't kowtow to corporate America, who wants to send because they want to make more money, they want to send all these jobs to China. They're beating up on all of us on Capitol Hill every single day to get rid of these tariffs because they know that it affects their bottom line because they've moved so many of their jobs and so much of their supply chain to China. And I tell them every day, well, move it back home. You know, and one of the biggest pieces of news that hasn't gotten enough attention is Apple bringing iPhone production out of China and moving it to India. India is an ally, so that's good, and it diminishes China, so that's good. So you'll see a lot of that happening as well. We want that production to come to the United States of America, but when we see announcements like that of major businesses pulling investments out of China, that's good for America, and we should celebrate it. And that's good for working class Americans. That's good for this new Republican Party and our base to let them know that we care more about you. The Democrats care more about China. Remind them of that every single day.
You know, it's interesting because the Democrats are running on all of these social issues, and they have been for a couple years. It didn't work in 24. They tried to continue their abortion narrative. Obviously, that was big for Gretchen Whitmer in 2022. And she made an interesting comment. She said, we're going to eat Indiana's lunch based on solely the access to abortion. She thought that businesses were going to move to Michigan because of that. And that was what she campaigned on. We are going to be dominating manufacturing because all of these businesses will be so upset with Indiana, they will leave and they will come to Michigan based solely on social issues. Obviously, that hasn't happened. Michigan there was just a new report done that Michigan is 44th in best states to live in. That's the state of Michigan 2 years after she ran on she was going to eat Indiana's lunch. What you just said earlier in this podcast about everything that's coming to Indiana, she can't catch a break when it comes to bringing a business to Michigan to save her life. She was literally on the tarmac at the airport waiting for Donald Trump with open arms the other day because he's saving the Air Force Base here. She's got nothing. What do Democrats campaign on in 26?
They're so crazy. I mean, that whether it's boys playing in girls' sports or right now, by the way, they're opposing this tax cut deal. And this isn't this isn't about corporate tax rates anymore. This is about extending the tax cuts on regular, normal, everyday working Americans, and Democrats are opposed to it. I mean, remind everyone that you can that the Democrats want your taxes to go up, and it'll be the biggest tax increase in American history if Democrats get their way and we don't extend the individual tax rates from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So how can you convince me or my dad or any blue collar American that Democrats are better represent you better than Republicans do? It's just not the case anymore.
Your colleagues are storming prisons to get illegal aliens out.
Right.
What is that?
The Democrats are a crazy town. I mean, there are a few, every now and then you talk to a Democrat privately on Capitol Hill and they know their party's crazy. They're trying to dig out of the hole, but they can't. They're stuck in the mud. The Democrats are the best thing that we have going for us. So we got to seize the moment, work with President Trump, and push the Trump agenda, the America First agenda, as far as we can. If we succeed at that, then we will be the party of the working class for a long time to come. It's not just something borrowed or loaned to us by President Trump. It's something that we can cement for the Republican Party, and that's how we win national elections for a long time.
And that's how we win the midterms. And I think that's what people need to get in the mindset, that we're going to win the midterms. The Democrats have been very good at gathering their activists and being out there. And you see them, I think that you have to recognize when you see people on the street corner protesting, they are still organized. They are still getting people together. We've got to stay out there. We can't sit back and go, oh, we've got this. Donald Trump is this hero to manufacturers. And that's what you're saying. The working class is not going to just stay with us because Donald Trump is out there. We have to stay out there. Last night, we went to Missaukee County in Michigan. The room was full. There were people standing in the back. Stay out there, or these people will be disenfranchised. They will be upset that you are not continuing to talk to them if you are a Republican.
Yeah, I really believe this. I mean, my dad again is like he's my focus group. I mean, he's one of these voters. He voted Democrat most of his life. He voted with the union because the Democrats were the party of the working people, is what the unions would say. But over time, he knew that wasn't true. I mean, he was excited when Ross Perot ran for president. We had the Perot for president bumper sticker on the truck, and I remember being embarrassed about that when I was a kid. But he liked that because Perot was talking about the same things, right? I mean, he was talking about China. He was talking about jobs going to Mexico, and that resonated with my dad. And then the second candidate that my dad got really excited about wasn't me. It was Donald Trump coming down the escalator because he was talking about being tough on China and bringing these jobs back. And President Trump was talking about how bad of a deal NAFTA was. And my dad was right. President Trump has been talking about these things since long before he ran for president. He was talking about our jobs going overseas even back in the 80s when he never even dreamed of being president one day. So this is a new Republican Party, but we got to keep these voters with us by doing what we said we were going to do. And that's where Republicans have fallen short for way too long before President Trump began to hold us accountable for it. We got to extend these tax cuts on working class people. We got to secure the border. We have to cut illegal immigration coming into our country like the president is doing. But the Congress has to do it. President Trump is doing all this by himself by executive order. The Congress has to pass these bills, pass these laws, so that the next time, God forbid, if a Democrat follows President Trump, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want that to happen. But that the next Joe Biden can come along and just do away with everything all the good things President Trump did with the stroke of a pen. We can't let him do that. We have to pass our bills and pass them into law so they can't be undone by an executive order by the next president.
Absolutely. That's what we keep saying. And we are better right now because we have you in the Senate, Senator Jim Banks. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a blessed day.